Welcome to another episode of Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. With me, as always, Jack Fairchild. Jack, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me as always, Chris.
Well, we are 2 days past the presidential election. Part of that equation is delivering a postmortem, and part is celebrating right now. And we're very pleased that we, as Republicans, as conservatives, have dodged a very major bullet in the sense that Ms. Harris was defeated. Now, if you're a fan of this show, we predicted that some time ago. Now, granted, we have an incredibly amount of conflicting information because the news media can't be trusted. And if you were looking at the data from the Democratic side, even leading up to the election, it was all a spin. You know, more women are voting, younger people are voting. And it gave the impression, at least early on, that maybe she had a fighting chance, but it really never was the case. And there are many, many reasons for that. The first of which is, let's just be honest, she was a really bad candidate.
Terrible.
A really bad candidate. From a lot of different positions. She wasn't managed well. And maybe she wasn't managed well because she could not perform any better. But it seemed to me her entire campaign was about abortion. And if you read the tea leaves on that issue, you should have known right away that wasn't going to be powerful enough to win the election. There were a number of other errors made by her. And I want to go into those here in just a minute. But the purpose of this show is something I want to at least reference early, so you'll stick with me throughout this. And this is the premise. This is the premise. We really haven't done anything yet. I know. We're supposed to be celebrating, and I am celebrating. It was a good night for all of us. But hear me out. We really haven't done anything yet. Now, we're on the defensive, and we did a good job blocking their nominee. She was dangerous. The Democrat Party has become dangerous, and we blocked their nominee. And in the past, we've been on the defensive. We always tend to block certain things and then ultimately later, collapse, compromise, reach across the aisle, but never really affirmatively reclaiming lost ground. We haven't done anything. We're on the edge of doing something perhaps, but we haven't done anything. We won because we stopped the flow of progressives, the flow of liberals. No, let's just say it, the flow of socialists. But now what? The country's still upside down. They still control the institutions of higher learning. They still control the government. And get this, Jack, the establishment of this country, the political establishment, is still very much entrenched. More on that later, because it offended me just a bit on Facebook and on social media when I saw the other night that the establishment was dead. Well, look, I know the establishment. I've been beaten by the establishment. I've been attacked and ridiculed by the establishment. They're not dead. They're playing you all for fools. They want you to think they're dead. It hasn't changed a bit, and I want to get into that later. But first, let's address, I guess, the big picture. You ever seen The Matrix?
Oh, yeah, a few times.
What's the story about there's a red pill and a blue pill? And Neo, the hero of The Matrix, is offered a red pill or a blue pill. Now, the colors don't really matter. I think it was the red pill enlightened him to this vision of the Matrix, and the blue pill would have left him in complacency. It would have left him kind of just floating along, accepting things the way they've always been. Now, for the sake of the movie, he chose the red pill, which allowed him to see things the way they really are. Unfortunately for me, Jack, probably you as well, years ago, we consumed the wrong red pill. I've been in those back rooms.
Yeah.
I've been in those back rooms. I know the operatives you're talking about. I know what the Senate looks like and how it operates. I know the people that Mitch McConnell has under his control, and I know that Washington hasn't budged a bit, not one bit, since our big victory Tuesday night. Now, I wish I would have taken the blue pill. I would love to be right now perfectly satisfied with the state of things, believing that things are going to be okay. But here's the lesson. They're not going to be okay unless you make them okay. They're not going to work unless you stay engaged in the system. Here's my big concern. My big concern is that most people are going to celebrate this victory, go back to work, go back to raising their families, which are good, honest, and admirable things to do, but then ignore their bigger and greater responsibilities. Who's going to hold Congress accountable? Who's going to hold the Senate accountable? Who's going to hold your local officials accountable? Who's going to hold the state officials accountable? The other night, millions of Americans who haven't voted in the past decided to vote. Now I guess they go back to sleep go back into their slumber and watch the establishment reinitiate control. And you say that's not possible. Trump's at the top of the ticket now. He was there 8 years ago, remember? We won in 2016, had control of the House, had control of the Senate. What happened?
Well, we saw the swamp not get drained.
Didn't get drained. I know that's going to offend some people, but we have to point it out because now's our chance. We didn't get it done 8 years ago. Even though we had control of the House, had control of the Senate, had the presidency, and he had a mandate then, it didn't get done. Now, I'm not blaming President Trump for that. He's up against forces you can't imagine.
Absolutely.
He's up against an entrenched establishment in D.C. that has all the money and all the power, and they sneer at him behind his back. The problem is that 8 years ago, I thought, or maybe he thought he could work with these people. I'm giving him the benefit of a doubt because
I think you're right.
Because he endorsed every one of them.
He did, and
it's indefensible.
Yeah.
It's indefensible. He endorsed Mitch McConnell.
Yep.
He endorsed Mitt Romney.
Shockingly.
He endorsed Lindsey Graham.
He did.
He endorsed every moderate to liberal Republican senator there ostensibly so he could work with them. How did that work out for us, though?
Not so well.
Not so well because those same Republicans that he endorsed turned around and for the next 4 years stabbed him in the back, Whether it's Thune, whether it's Romney, whether it's Graham, stabbed him in the back. McConnell said some of the worst things imaginable about President Trump, did he not?
Absolutely he did.
He endorsed him. So I'm looking back 8 years and I'm thinking, what on earth is happening here because you had a chance to drain it, but nothing got drained. So I'm a bit pessimistic, but maybe, hopefully, we've all learned our lessons. The establishment cannot be trusted. They are not to be worked with because they had no intention of changing the status quo. Do you know why they won't change the status quo?
Because it benefits them.
It does. That's what empowered them. The donor class, the wealthy, the corporate interests, the very ones that control the city of Washington, control those senators. Mitch McConnell, sitting right there at the highest pinnacle. He has the most money. He raises the most money. Get this. What if I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind? Mitch McConnell has a super PAC. And I have felt the blunt of that super PAC as he attacked me with millions of dollars.
I remember.
Right? Twice. And yet, you wonder, who does he support with his super PAC, right? Those that kiss his butt.
Absolutely.
Let's just say it the way it is, right? He didn't give Ted Cruz a dime.
No, and Ted Cruz was fighting for his life.
Ted Cruz, fighting for his political life, didn't give him a dime. I don't think he's given Mike Lee a single dime, or Rick Scott a single dime. Yet, Marsha Blackburn, fully funded.
Yep.
I'm not saying anything bad about Marsha, not yet, but I'm just saying, follow the money, and you'll see who controls whom up there, right?
Yep.
Right? So right now, Mitch McConnell is the kingmaker in the Senate. I'm gonna make a point here in a moment. Here it is. He's got to go, and he is stepping down. But who replaces him might be the biggest decision we've had since Tuesday.
I 100% agree.
Because if you don't get right, if you don't get the right guy there, what's
more
Trump
of the
gonna do?
same. More of the same.
More of the same. All right, so let's start first by talking about Ms. Harris because this will be the last time we get to mention her. She's a footnote now.
No more cackling.
She's a footnote. Now, I'm sure she'll go on to be a very successful lobbyist. Again, part of the establishment. Let's not kid ourselves. These, even the ones that lose these races, fall right on their feet and make millions and millions and millions of dollars. And now she gets to cackle and get paid in the halls of Congress as opposed to actually leading, thank God, anything in this country. But she'll still be okay. But she really was a bad candidate. I swear, I kept waiting for her to say something other than the word salads that resembled a position on things.
No, she couldn't do it. A matter of fact, one time when she was on The View, she said the one thing they absolutely didn't think she should.
I'm going to get to that in a second.
I'm going to save it for you.
I'm going to get to that in a second. Now, I'm saying that I'm talking about policy statements. You're talking about trying to move on from the Joe Biden presidency. That's not a policy statement. I'm talking about what did she really believe? See, to me, she was a stealth candidate.
Yeah.
And do you know why she was a stealth candidate?
Because they were desperate.
Well, that too, but she's radicalized. She always has been.
Yeah.
If you look at her past statements, you see a person who is an unabashed liberal, maybe socialist. I mean, she's
maybe communist. Her father was
the most liberal voting record in the U.S. Senate when she was there, right? And that says a lot because Bernie Sanders served with her, and she was to the left of Bernie Sanders. So What did she run on? Well, we know abortion. They spent $500 million on ads touting the abortion issue. Now, I know they were thinking, right? This will be the issue that pushes women to the polls, and this is how we win this race. But if you look at the numbers, though, that was never going to be the case. I think they did it because her handlers knew this poor lady just didn't have the skill to talk about anything substantive.
I think that's 100% accurate
So
because
they hit
we
her.
saw the evidence of it.
They hit her. They hit her every chance they got. She couldn't talk about substantive things, and so here we go. The 7 or 8 or 9 errors that she made throughout this race. Let's start with the first one, and Jack, you alluded to it. You go on The View, you get a softball question lobbed up. You're supposed to be the agent of change, because if you look at the polling, the country is very unhappy with the state of the economy, very unhappy with the border, just very unhappy generally. You know, all those trends were going for Trump the entire time because folks were so unhappy. And so she gets the one question where she could say, look, I am not Joe Biden, and I'm not gonna lead like Joe Biden. She couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And she basically rubber stamped the past 4 years. And when she did that, she cost herself tremendously because the people were looking for change. It's the reason Obama was so popular. I didn't believe a word in what he said, but he spoke articulately, he was charismatic, and his whole campaign was hope and change. That sells in politics. She couldn't even get that right. Let's keep going. Number 2, here's a lesson. If you're going to use celebrities, use them rarely. Her entire campaign was one celebrity after the other. Now,
It was a bit much.
It was a lot much. And here's the thing about that. You look at these blue-collar workers that supported Trump this time.
Yeah.
You look at these plumbers and these carpenters and these hardworking men and women that actually make this country work, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Beyonce is going to change their mind?
No.
No. You think Taylor Swift is going to change their mind?
No.
It's a poor strategy because you have these billionaire entertainers that are preaching down to people about issues that they themselves know intuitively are wrong. What's Taylor Swift got in common with a carpenter or an oil field worker? Nothing. Well, get this. The people they hired, I suppose, to campaign with them, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, George Clooney, when he wasn't, attacking Biden, strangely enough, George Clooney, these are people that are completely removed from average American life. They have houses on big lakes in Italy. They fly private jets everywhere. What do they know about the price of groceries? What do they know about inflation? What do they know about raising children? The answer is absolutely nothing. They're elites and they're spoiled. The very people I think we're sick of hearing from. I know this. I've talked to some good old boy friends of mine since this election. They all say the same thing. To hell with those people.
Amen.
Who do they think they are preaching to us? Why do they think they can tell us how to live our lives? Why should they? Just because they had a hit record? Most of that was luck anyway. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm not suggesting they're not talented. I'm suggesting there are millions of talented people that never get that shot because they don't have that lucky break. Right?
Yep.
So what's this? Beyonce, you leave, what was it, Destiny's Child, and you go off on a singular mission to make $1 billion, and I guess she married up or married down, I'm not sure about that, but a lot of money, right? Was it Jay-Z she married?
Yeah.
A lot of cash there. And so she's no longer tethered to what made her Beyonce in the first place. And yet she's preaching to us. Yeah, that ticked people off. So here's the lesson number 2 if you're going to win a campaign. Maybe tone down the celebrities. Maybe Lady Gaga isn't the right idea.
You sure?
Beyonce, Oprah Winfrey. And we all love Oprah. We get that. But
do we?
Well, come on. Oprah's not the kind of person I want to take life advice from.
Yeah.
Right? Don't get me wrong. She's incredibly successful. But, part of that success has made her, again, untethered to the basic Oprah she once was, I'm sure.
She has no connection to modern middle-class America whatsoever.
None whatsoever. But that celebrity thing really was problematic. Number 3, how do you lose an election if you're Miss Harris? I thought it was bad taste to keep showcasing, maybe the word traitors are too difficult or too harsh, but the Liz Cheneys of the world.
Yeah.
It was like every time an ex-Republican spoke out against Trump, they were on the stage with him.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you, that's kind of offensive in so many ways because we don't see Liz Cheney as a person of a reasonable Republican mindset. She may have been at one point in her life, because she's so angry now, She's off the reservation.
Yep.
And she was so far off the reservation, she was campaigning with Miss Harris, claiming yet to still be a Republican. Now get this, if you look at her voting record, it's pretty conservative. She doesn't behave like it. She's bitter. She's angry. I'm not sure what caused her to be so bitter, what caused her to be so angry. Maybe they didn't send her a ticket to Trump's country club. Maybe when she went to Texas, Ted Cruz didn't have dinner with her or something. But there's something about her. She's angry.
Yeah.
And it comes across as anger. Get this. She also campaigned against Ted Cruz, claiming to be a Republican. Look, you may not like Ted Cruz. Some people say he has a punchable face. I like Ted Cruz. I like him a lot. But you can't decline or deny who he is. Why would you campaign against him? You may not like Trump personally. Cruz too. I mean, who else is there? Who else would you go against? So you put these old folks out there in the camera. They're traitors to most of us. Does that more aggravates us than anything else, and it motivates us to get to the polls to beat them, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, you're watching someone, like you're talking about using Liz Cheney as the example. There were others, of course, but using her as an example, the fact that it wasn't just Trump. You know, they're always talking about Trump has this hit list, enemy list. It seems like Liz Cheney had her own, huh?
There's something sad to me about all of that, because her father was a pretty conservative guy, rather than being, he was, an active warmonger, which was unfortunate. And she was a pretty conservative vote for a long, long time. And what's unfortunate about it is, it's like they let the personalities get in the way of their principles.
I think so.
And I've said 1,000 times, don't let that happen. Let's just try to float above that as best you can. You may not like somebody's personality, but if they're conservative and they can get you from point A to point B with policy, maybe we should think about supporting them. But here's the thing about her, and again, I'm speculating. Rich, silver spoon, didn't get her way. The outcome was predictable. She was going to lash out. She was going to lash out. She was entitled to these positions. She was entitled to advance, and when she didn't, she was going to lash out. Yep. And we see that. I've seen that since I was 3 years old on the playgrounds.
Lash out and cut backroom deals with the wrong people.
Absolutely. The kids that are always feel entitled are the ones that are always lashing out because they don't get their way. Yep. That's what I saw with Liz Cheney. Here's another idea. If you're going to pick a running mate, I don't know, pick somebody that can help your campaign.
Amen.
I mean, well, you and I talked about this when it happened, and we're talking about, you and I are agreeing that Shapiro was the right choice. Now, at first, it seemed like maybe Waltz could bring something to the table, some Midwestern charm. He was just goofy.
He was awkward in the worst kind of ways.
Weird. Just weird. So ask yourself this, if you're trying to find somebody that can bring voters to your camp, and then you get this guy, which on paper, he's a coach, check.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of cool. He's folksy, check. Yeah. He's a governor or whatever, check. He's goofy. He was off-putting. He was unusual, and he didn't bring voters to her at all. In fact, I think he probably alienated quite a few of those moderates that were looking for some place to land. Think about it. He's not young.
Nope.
He's not charismatic.
Not at all.
He didn't bring cash to the table.
No.
Or a constituency.
Not really.
Why did they pick him? I'm glad they did. In retrospect, it's a great move for us. But was she just so worried about making sure she reached out to some mythological white middle class, that she found this loony liberal that no white middle class person could ever support in a million years? Why did she shy away from Shapiro? Was race a part of that?
It absolutely was, Chris, because she feared the fact that he was Jewish. In my personal opinion, I think that was the major fact. She was so worried about these pro-Palestine protesters that she gave up on common sense.
I don't like his policies, but Shapiro is intelligent and he's a good speaker, and he would have bought something to the table.
And he was in a battleground state that she lost and desperately needed.
Well, that's what I was getting to before you jumped in there. I like it though. You get it. I was saying he bought something to the table. That something was Pennsylvania. He bought Pennsylvania to the table. I just don't get it. I mean, she was going to win Minnesota if she never ran. If it had been nobody on the ticket, Trump would have lost Minnesota.
But that'd be like Trump selecting a senator from Alabama to be his running mate, or Mississippi.
Because you got to carry the state. You already got the state.
Yeah, those are states you're going to win. So traditionally you try to pick a running mate in a state that's going to help you, and she didn't do that.
Well, let's keep going. What's another way to lose an election? Here's a way. You probably shouldn't belittle or insult an entire base of voters.
No.
I mean, whether you call them deplorable or racist or garbage down the stretch, it's not a good look. Not only does it motivate them to get to the polls, but think about this. What if you're in the middle, you're trying to figure out who to vote for, and you see that very unpleasant conduct? It turns people off. Why would you risk doing that just to get a verbal plug-in somehow? It's not a good look. Not a good look. It did not work out for her very well at all. Also, don't have your own surrogates insult your own constituents by preaching down to them, Barack Obama. Barack Obama thinks he's the only black man in the country, I guess.
Yeah.
Because he goes out and literally demeans and preaches down to people. Why aren't you getting to the polls? You got to get to the polls. They can think for themselves. They don't need Barack Obama as their shepherd. I promise you that. He'll lead them the wrong direction. I thought that was a bad move. Number 8, she did this. Never believe your own hype.
Oh, that's a big one.
She got caught up in it, man. She got caught up. I don't know if it was her advisors or her, but when she announced and she got that surge of momentum, she was believing. Now, there's nothing wrong with being confident, but the problem with believing your own hype is this. You sometimes underestimate your opponent. And in politics, you should always respect your opponent, because no matter how strong you think you may be, you can lose.
Yeah.
Trump was not running a perfect race by any stretch of the imagination. I think she thought in her mind, look at me, look what I've done. I've got this surge. He's going to lose this on his own.
Yeah.
And it might be that's what her advisors thought as well, which is why she never spoke about anything except laughter and abortion. It might be they thought he would just tank it. But the problem is, when people are trying to decide, they're looking at qualities of leadership. They looked at her, they didn't see any.
No.
And despite what Trump was doing, which was occasionally saying things perhaps he shouldn't say, they at least saw the qualities of a leader. We didn't always agree with how he said it, but we at least saw leadership projected. That went a long way. So never underestimate your opponent. And I think she did that, and it cost her dearly. But again, I'm happy to see that.
Yeah.
By the way, on the Taylor Swift thing, I saw a cool stat. I thought her endorsement was going to be huge.
That's what they told us.
That's what the press told us, right? And it turned out that I did some research. And there's actually a body of research out there on celebrity endorsements and what it means to a candidate. What happens is celebrity endorsements actually encourage and increase civic participation. Did you know that?
I did not.
But it doesn't always equate to votes. I know that sounds weird, and here's why. When they polled Taylor Swift's endorsement, 9% of the population that heard it was more inclined to vote for Miss Harris. I'm gonna blow your mind here. 20% were more disinclined to vote for Harris. So you get a big civic engagement, but the votes themselves don't always translate. It's the same with Clooney. It's the same with Taylor Swift and Beyonce, whoever it is. You see all the celebrity, but it doesn't always translate to votes. What I have enjoyed, however, is watching these celebrities suffer over the last couple of days.
Before you move on to that, Chris, I want to ask you, I know you're familiar with, sports commentator Stephen A. Smith. Did you see what he had to say about the celebrities in this race?
I don't think I did.
Here's his quote. He says, "In the end, celebrities who are worth hundreds of millions, if not billions, who most American citizens feel are incredibly detached from their way of life and their quality of life, were not going to get away and guilt them into doing something different than what their experiences says is going on and what they should do about
That's
it."
what we just said.
Yeah.
What did Stephen A. add to that?
I just thought, again, because him
You're
being
citing a celebrity. You think celebrities matter?
Him being more leftist, I think it's very telling that
Did he say it before the race or after?
After the race.
All right, well, there's no credibility to that then. That's just him covering his bases.
He may have said something before, but this quote's after the race.
Yeah, well, that's him covering his bases right there.
Probably.
Stephen A. is really good about Monday morning quarterbacking, as you know.
He is good at that, for sure.
Can't wait to see what happens with this fight between him and McAfee that I'm hearing about. It's
I've read about that, yeah.
Oh, it's going to be interesting.
It is.
Who's going to be the big dog at ESPN now? Maybe Harris can go there and host a show.
I'm sure
they would love to have her there. Now, what I did see that was encouraging was how discouraged our liberal friends were. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I don't like when people are unhappy. I don't like people to be unhappy. In fact, I don't understand why everybody got so upset. It's a political race. It's not the end of the world. Your heart's still beating. You still have people that love you. You can't just stop living because you lose a political race. That's a little silly, isn't it?
Very silly.
You can't tell that to the liberals right now. Even The Guardian, a UK newspaper, and an online publication. Do you know the managing editor literally offered paid therapy to her staffers? Therapy. It's not, listen, you didn't lose a loved one.
No.
You hadn't gone to war. I mean, life goes on here. Donald Trump is not going to end this democracy. I promise you that. You just fell for all the wrong information. Now, with that said, therapy. These are writers. These are grown people that are supposed to be adults, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. You may love politics, you may hate politics, but if you're, and it's the same with football. I'm not trying to be hateful here. I'm just going to point out, people have an unhealthy obsession sometimes with football. Alabama fans, for example. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
That poor coach could go 11-2, and because he had 2 losses, he's got to go, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's an unhealthy obsession. And what happens is it reprioritizes things in your life that perhaps should not be as high a priority. It's the same with politics.
Yeah.
We get so caught up in it, the tribal, red versus blue, we feel like we have to win. I'm going to tell you something. Whether or not your sports team wins on Sunday, you still got to get up and go to work on Monday. It changes nothing about your life. It's the same here. Now, granted, this will have a more impact on some people's lives, but it's not going to end these people. And I'm wondering why that's the case if Harvard went so far as to cancel classes because of it.
I wish I could say I was shocked.
This is what's crazy. Like Harvard, it's not like they're doing this. I can't. These are supposed to be our best and brightest.
Allegedly, yeah.
And they had to cancel some classes because the students just simply couldn't cope. If you can't cope with the stress of Miss Harris losing a single race, that's, for the most part, inconsequential in your life, how will you cope with the stress of work every day?
They don't.
Well, that's what we're teaching these people, how to be big babies. And the Harvard electorate, they're obviously brilliant, but they still could not quite make it to class today. So they canceled some of these classes. Sociology, 1156, statistics for social sciences, canceled. Applied math was canceled. Mathematicians shouldn't be that unhappy about anything, right?
Yeah.
The ancient Greek hero, that was canceled. Popular culture in modern China, I don't know. I don't know who signs up for this, right? It was canceled. So they were so upset that they literally had to cancel classes. There was a couple of letters that were sent out saying that even if you do come to class, don't worry about it if you have to miss. Don't worry about it if you have to get up and leave early. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to deal with your emotions. Are we raising adults or just taking kids and shipping them off to work? I don't understand what's happening here.
We're definitely not raising adults anymore, at least not in the college setting. And I think you can go into certain high schools and see something similar, Chris, because what we've come to in the last several years, and this is still a relatively new phenomenon, of course, is this notion that you need safe spaces, that we have to protect and coddle these kids. And that's not doing them any favors.
Let me give you a compare and contrast. In the 1940s, you had 18-year-olds storming beaches.
Yep.
Just let that sink in.
Yep.
Storming beaches, trying to liberate a continent. Okay? Now you have 18-year-olds that can't go to class because their presidential candidate didn't win. Something's wrong with that system. And if that's the Ivy League, I don't want any part of it. Now, I saved the best liberal overreaction for last. But first, let's do a commercial. Wait till you hear this. Like I was saying, I saved the best liberal overreaction for last. And there were a lot. There were so many. Jimmy Kimmel was crying.
I saw that.
The Marvel superheroes were probably crying. You know, not even sure The View had a show. They might have. I
Oh,
didn't
oh, they
catch it.
did.
I didn't catch it. Here's the one. So apparently there's a Korean movement called the 4B movement. It's a group of liberal feminists from Korea. And their big thing now is they're abstaining, these women, from having sex with men. They're going to teach these men a lesson about feminism, right? Now, according to this story I've found, there's a bunch of women online in this country that are now saying that they're going to get back to men. And you know what? They've sworn no sex over the next 4 years with men. They didn't specify if there was going to be a woman or not. But no sex, they said, for 4 years with any man to show this terrible society we're a part of, misogynist society we're a part of, to show them that this is their body and they can control it as they see fit. Now, fine, whatever, but they're literally trying to punish men for voting for Trump. That's why they're doing it.
Yep.
Their candidate lost, and now they're abstaining. First of all, I don't care.
I don't either.
And let's not kid ourselves. To the vast majority of these women, it won't change their sex lives one bit.
Nope.
Right? Not one bit. But who cares? But why do they think their egos are so important, their own selves are so important, that a message needs to be sent? It's rooted in sexism, is it not?
It 100% is.
And they're blaming her loss on sexism, which I don't believe that's the case at all. I think had she been an articulate, charismatic, smart woman who knew issues, I think she had a chance to win. She was none of those things.
Nope.
She was none of those things. In fact, let's not kid ourselves, she was only there because she was a woman. Mm-hmm. Is that sexism? Inverted, certainly, but against men, not against women.
Yeah.
She was selected. Well, don't kid. It was documented. She was selected because she was a black female to be VP.
We saw it.
That's why. And they didn't challenge her at the convention because she was a black female. In other words, her being a female actually gave her an advantage over anyone else in the party. How they claim that sexism in her defeat makes no sense whatsoever, but that's what they're doing. Women on social media showing videos of themselves saying no dating, no marriage, no having children with men for at least 4 years. As a woman, my bodily autonomy matters, and this is my way to exercise sovereignty over that. Frankly, I don't care one way or the other, but it's not so much a bad idea if you think of it in terms of politics, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's numerical.
If it means that they're not going to reproduce them for it. Yeah.
If they're not procreating, then we have more conservatives being born than liberals, right? Anyway, I think, and I'm pretty open-minded about things like this. If they want to do that, knock themselves out. I don't know why it was a news story. I don't know why it was so important. They felt the need to get online and talk about it. But there's a movement. It's called the 4B movement. Look it up, Korean 4B movement. Men are hated, women are celebrated. Now, leading to the next big part of this show, we have talked about the campaign, why she failed, why Trump won, and how they've reacted. Now, the most important part of this show today is this. We won a race, didn't we?
We did.
It was a big race, wasn't it?
Yeah, 100% big.
We better act like it now.
Yeah.
Act like we won for a change, because the Republican Party I'm familiar with doesn't know how to win, and I mean really win.
Yeah.
They'll win races, then they'll give away the House with deals brokered with Democrats. Oh, they'll win the races, then they'll take their cronies and their buddies, moderates, right?
Yep.
And party changers and party switchers, and they'll put them in positions of power, and things never really change. So we're to the point now, we have a chance to fight with conviction. Mm-hmm. This is not a time to be wobbly, is it?
Not at all.
It's funny. We beat the liberals, evidently, with the best candidate they had, and we beat them soundly. We gained control again of the Senate. Might very well hold on to the House.
Looks like it.
Right. That was a butt kicking. It's time to act like it. We have been electing milquetoast, weak, spineless Republicans for as long as I can remember. Even here in Mississippi, the list is long.
Yep.
That's why our state, as red as it is, can't seem to break off the bottom, because we're too busy electing these weak, girly men to these positions of authority, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, when I was serving, the strongest politicians I knew were women. They're the ones that had the cojones. Most of the men I served with didn't have a bit of guts. They were loud talkers, but no doers, right? In fact, they were too busy cutting deals and getting drunk and hanging out and going to lobbyist parties than they were to actually vote like the Republican they claimed they were going to be when they ran in the first place. You've seen this.
Absolutely.
And we've seen it in D.C. time and time and time again. We dodged a bullet beating Miss Harris, and we have control of the government now. So what now? Do we allow the old temptations to become the norm? Do we fall back into that same trap where Republicans are these weak politicians that get pushed around by the press, pushed around by the Democrats, and get nothing done? Or do we take this as a mandate? Trump said the other night, this is a mandate. Are we going to act like it? Now, again, earlier I talked about the Matrix. I've been in these back rooms. You're going to have to count me as a pessimist here. We've had control of this government multiple times since I've been an adult. The debt has always grown. We've had control of it multiple times. The beast always expanded. We've had control of it multiple times. We were never able to eliminate the waste and the fraud and the corruption. In fact, I can't name a single piece of conservative legislation since Newt Gingrich that actually became law. Can you?
No, I can't.
Now, we got the tax cuts passed with Trump.
Yep.
But don't get me wrong, I'm all for it. But it was a little bit.
It was.
And they still did nothing to control spending on the back end, which drove up deficits for that 4 years, right? In debt. We didn't behave like Republicans. Now, I believe Trump wants to be.
I do too.
But he's got to find fighters, especially in the Senate, that are going to actually step up and do something. You say, why the Senate? Here's why the Senate. Every time we've controlled this government, naysayers in the Senate, those weaklings in the Senate, have stood in the way of progress. And I mean conservative progress, not their type of progress.
Yeah.
Right? And they use that excuse to filibuster, to stand behind as to not take any action. Now, Ms. Harris said she was going to repeal that filibuster and pass good liberal legislation. So, in the Senate, here's how that filibuster works. What are we going to end up with? 53, 54? What do they say?
I think it's right now looking like 53, but 54 is possible.
But less than 60.
Yep.
Built-in excuse. They'll say they don't have the votes to get over the filibuster, right?
Yep.
What you going to do about it? You do realize that electing a president means nothing unless he can get laws passed, right?
Yep.
Right? Now, granted, we love the judicial appointments. He can get some of that done for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't apply the filibuster to some of the judicial appointments. They make exceptions for those. But when it comes to actually passing conservative legislation, they have built-in excuses. Now, here's the thing. If the government's been moving leftist for 40 years, growing, right, more pervasive in our lives, more anti-individualism than ever before, we have a responsibility to stop that, don't we?
I think we should, yes.
Count me a pessimist. I'm going to tell you why I am. I'm going to get to it right now. This is going to get me in trouble, but I don't care. Mitch McConnell. He's been there since 2007, leader of this party. Did you know that?
Yep, I did.
Okay. He's going to have his hand-picked successor try to reclaim control over that body as the Republican majority leader.
And counter Trump, most likely.
They already are.
Yep.
Thune and Cornyn. Those names should ring a bell if you like Trump, because both those men failed to support Trump until he was already the selected nominee. They both fought him, they both attacked him, they both criticized him, they both ridiculed him. And now they're number 1 and 2 fighting for that position.
Yep.
McConnell's guy still in control. You really think Mitch McConnell's going to just sashay off into the sunset without maintaining some degree of control over this body?
Not at all.
Now you say, why does this matter? Here's why it matters, because Trump has an endorsement to make, if you will. This is going to be his first big test. Is he there to drain it? Because Rick Scott's ready to drain it. Am I right?
I think so.
Rick Scott, senator from Florida, been on Trump's side since day one. Actually ran against McConnell, only got 10 votes, remember?
Yep, I do.
Only got 10 votes. Actually ran against him, had the guts to do it. And he's running. So you got 3 people in the race that actually have a fighting chance. Thune, Cornyn, and Florida, Scott. What's Trump going to do?
That's a good question.
What do you think he should do?
I think you should go with the guy that, again, Trump preaches loyalty. He wants folks that are loyal to him. Who has been more loyal to him out of those 3 than Rick Scott? Rick Scott is the clear cut choice. So that's what I think he should do, 100%.
Get this. We know the leader of the Republican majority in the Senate controls the flow of legislation in that chamber.
Yep.
So we know that's going to be the most pivotal selection imaginable for conservatives, almost as big as the presidential election itself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the Senate, what you going to get done?
Nothing.
So here we go. It's Mitch McConnell and more of the same. Or Trump can get involved here and get something done. Now, I bring all that up because Mitch McConnell has given us a record over the years. And I want to talk about that record because I'm sick of people defending Mitch McConnell. And the only way they try to defend him, they talk about Supreme Court appointees. Well, you got to correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but I thought the president made those appointments.
He does.
Okay? And if the president makes an appointment for a United States Supreme Court position, isn't McConnell pretty much obligated to support it?
He's supposed to be,
yes. No, he is. Technically, he would have to be because if he looks at his president and says no, there would be a massive split in the caucus. He would lose power, perhaps. So it's not like McConnell chose and supported these Supreme Court nominees because he was an arch conservative. He did it because he had to. And I hear people saying, "Well, look what he did with us." No, you don't applaud a dog for barking. Dogs bark.
Amen.
You don't applaud McConnell for actually behaving like a conservative for the first time in his life. He has a record of failure. Consider this. Just one of our biggest platform issues has always been spending, hasn't it?
It has.
And debt. Spending and debt. I've heard that since I was a baby Republican. When he arrived at his position, oh man, the debt was $6.7 trillion. It's $35 trillion now.
Yep.
Every dollar had to come through his body. Every dollar came through his support, one way or the other. Every single dollar. That's $30 trillion on his back. Don't tell me he's a conservative. He never has been. He's caucused with Democrats. He's compromised every chance he's gotten, right?
Yep.
Even on the Affordable Care Act, we had a chance to repeal that. He wasn't going to let that happen.
Nope.
He wasn't going to let that happen. So what he does, he raises a ton of money, and he controls the Senate. You think, oh, come on. You think these senators are acting autonomously? Cruz does. Mike Lee does. That's pretty much it. Rand Paul does. And they're ostracized.
They are.
What major committees do they chair?
I can't name one.
What bills do they ever get passed?
I can't think of one.
No, because McConnell.
Yep.
He takes the three most conservative and he sends them out to pasture. Won't even help him try to get reelected. Meanwhile, his cronies, he gives money to, they get reelected, but there's a quid pro quo. There's an exchange. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. I'll give you this cash. In exchange for that cash, you give me your vote. And like you said earlier, he'll allow them to vote for conservative things only if they know they're going to lose.
Yep.
Right? And they're trying to cover a vote for back home. And that's part of the damage right now that's being done. So you say, well, what's the big deal? Why are you so fired up? Here's why I'm fired up. Because all you folks that voted Tuesday, you're going to go back home now and not even vote. You're going to go back to sleep.
The once every 4-year voters.
The once every 4-year voter. And you're going to realize then, I suppose, that nothing's going to change. And you're going to wonder, well, I wonder why it didn't change. Because you kept electing the same people to office time and time and time again. And they're beholden not to Trump. Now, they'll play the game. They'll tell you they like Donald Trump.
Lost your video.
Okay. Am I still on, though?
Yeah, you're still on.
My video's out, but I'm here.
Gotcha.
They'll tell you they like Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
They say they get elected. But how do they treat him? How do they treat him? They stab him in the back.
Oh, they treat him terrible.
That's exactly right. So look, I may be in the dark here, but I'm not when it comes to Mitch McConnell. I know who he is, and that's why this election is so important. So it's heating up. We've got to decide. John Thune, John Cornyn, or Rick Scott?
It's Rick Scott, all the way.
Your vote is Rick Scott. Well, the conservatives better get fired up and let some people know, because I guarantee you these senators are going to go right in there and do exactly what they're told. Get this, the vote's a secret vote. Did you know that?
I did know that, and it's
a
frustrating.
secret vote. Secret vote. So they can go in, ostensibly, vote the pure establishment way, and no one will ever know. And that's why Trump, I think, needs to get involved right now. I would love to see him endorse and, frankly, work against anybody who's worked against him.
It makes the most sense for him to.
You know what's funny, too? They asked Thune about it. They asked Thune point blank. They said, do you think Trump should get involved? No, leave us alone. Of course that's what he wants, because he hasn't done anything to support Trump. And he knows that Trump, if he gets involved, is probably going to endorse Rick Scott.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
It's fascinating, Chris, to watch this all play out. And again, the questions that we have about, I'm with you. I'm just as pessimistic as I've said before. Unfortunately, I'm cursed with knowledge. I've seen these things
You're
before.
cursed with knowledge?
I'm cursed with knowledge.
What are you, Thanos now? I've seen that line from Avengers. Tony Stark.
Yeah.
You're not the only one cursed with knowledge.
Exactly. I could have gone with another pop culture one and said I drink and I know things, but I figured I'd stay away from that one.
Well, the more we drink, the less we know, Jack.
But I mean, the point still remains. We have seen the song and dance before. And the problem is so many people get so wrapped up in the presidency. And we get so happy because we win the presidency. And then we don't do anything to try to make sure that the guy that we fought tooth and nail to get elected to be the president for the next 4 years, we don't do anything to try to make sure that the Republicans around him are working with him. We continue to go and reelect the same soft-willed Republicans time and time again. And then some people, not us, but some people may go and blame the very president they fought to get elected.
Well, it's our fault.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
I agree.
You think about this, like even these two. Now, I have nothing against personally any of these men. I want to be clear about that. I'm sure they all love their puppies and their kids and their wives. I have nothing personal against them. I just want to see real change.
Yeah.
Not more of the same. I'm tired of the country club mentality there in D.C. They get up there, they get elected, and they do nothing but hold hearings. I'm sick of the hearings.
I'm sick of the hearings too. They're pointless.
Pointless hearings. Now, here's what's crazy. This article speaks to Thune and to Cornyn, and it points out that both have been very critical of Trump, but have spent the last year trying to make amends. And that's why we lose. They'll be Trump, and people will fall for it.
Oh, the greatest example of all, Lindsey Graham.
Lindsey Graham has stabbed Trump in the back more times than anybody up there. Yet the people of South Carolina, they're just going to keep sending him up there over and over and over again. Am I right?
You're 100% right. It's insane the fact that we don't understand that doing the same thing over and over again is going to give us the exact same results that we always get. I will never understand. Look, part of the reason why I knew Trump was going to win, I had a faith, but there was a part of me, because I just don't have faith in some of the American electorate out there, that they weren't going to fall for the tricks that the media was playing. They weren't going to fall for that stuff. But one thing that we have seen that has been very consistent out of the electorate for years, Chris, is the fact that once they win a presidency, they go and sit on their hands because they feel like they've already accomplished what they set out to do.
I read an article the other day that pointed it out perfectly. People just don't understand our system. And maybe the civics teachers are failing. Maybe public education is not teaching civics the way it once did. People have no idea. And even today, I saw where Jimmy Kimmel was interviewing people on the streets in New York. And these poor folks, they didn't even know there's been an election. I mean, they didn't know up from down, didn't know there was, who had won. It was embarrassing. But what's even more embarrassing in some respects are people that are so engaged and still believe we elect kings. There are people out there that believe that Donald Trump can do whatever he wants now. And I'm here to tell you, he cannot, nor should he.
No.
Listen to me now. You value liberty, you value your freedom, you gotta value the constraints placed on the executive and on government by the founding fathers. Because one day we won't have our person there. I'm not gonna live under tyranny, no matter if it's an R or a D.
Amen.
And that means we have to be constitutionalist, and we have to hope that the Senate and the House finds their backbone and actually passes some good conservative reform legislation. Maybe they will. Maybe Trump now with that mandate can pressure them into doing it, because I don't believe they'll do it unless they're pressured.
And maybe, too, the fact that Trump doesn't have to worry about a re-election again. Maybe he will finally do some of those original campaign promises. Maybe he won't feel like he has to tether himself to certain individuals within the party the way he did during his first term. There is some hope.
I hope so. I got a buddy of mine, a good friend of both of us, and his position is that now that Trump is free, unfettered, in a second term, he'll be free to be aggressive and take more persuasive action against some of these establishment people. Time will tell.
I hope so.
I mean, here we are in November. This is all going down in January, and we're going to have a new Senate Majority Leader.
Yep.
And that's just, you cannot overstate the importance of that position. Now, my friend Mike Lee is doing his best to get some concessions for those on the right that will have a greater impact on how votes are decided. I don't think McConnell has any intention to give him any concessions.
I don't either.
And I don't think Thune or Cornyn would as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what occurs here, because that good old boy network is still very much in play. I think the House is a touch more fluid, but the problem we've got there is the margins are so thin.
Yeah.
And we have a whole bunch of Republicans that aren't Republicans in the House, just like in the Senate. And when your margins are thin on the big, strong pieces of conservative legislation, sometimes you just don't have the votes to get it done. I'm hoping Trump can use his bully pulpit to actually begin to go after some of those congressmen that aren't willing to fight, and to actually pick up some numbers and give us the margins we need to pass some legislation. Because here's the bad news. History tells us this. 2 years from January, the opposition party is probably going to do really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate that, but it's just been the ebb and flow of the cycle of presidential politics as long as I remember. Presidents go in, 2 years later they lose the House.
Yep.
And usually lose it in big numbers.
Yep.
So we got 2 years.
I agree.
2 years.
We've seen this song and dance, and that is the tradition. Now, maybe you buck a trend. You probably aren't, because we've seen this almost in every presidential cycle. That's why we predicted it last go around with Biden, that you were going to lose at least the House. I think some people thought that they were going to lose the Senate at that time too, but that didn't happen. But the House almost always flips midterm of a president.
It does. It's the way it's always been. And it's frustrating because it just goes to show, based on the cycle of the runs and the states that are involved and the people that, once again, go back to sleep. Because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You have a whole bunch of House races in 2 years, and nobody's going to show up to vote.
Yeah.
They're just not, because we can't wake them up. Not enough people are listening. But when that presidential race comes, everybody goes to vote. But the House races, nobody goes to vote.
Why, again, Chris, and again, I'm going to ask your opinion here, because neither of us know 100%, but why is it we put so much stock in the presidential race? Why is it that the average American citizen can really get fired up and be motivated for a presidency, but they can't get motivated for their governor?
You leave that, there's a lot of theories out there about the imperial presidency and what it means and what the presidency was originally meant to be and what it has become. And, you know, what's interesting is, after World War II, there was a massive federalization of the national government, the federal government. It became more powerful than ever before because we had just won a big war, there was unity, and you saw this might that occurred. And a lot of it began with Roosevelt. And you think about moving pictures and television and radio and how it progressed. It's the president that gets the most airtime. Mm-hmm. It's the president that speaks decisively to war and to foreign policy. Even though we have a Congress that's supposed to declare war, the president will still take action militarily, even when he doesn't have a declaration. The founders would probably, bend over backwards on that. But the president traditionally has become more and more powerful, and people are always attracted to power. Plus, we had the assassination of Kennedy. It drew more attention to the office. He was this young, charismatic, handsome politician, and it changed the way people viewed the presidency to a certain extent. And then Reagan came along, and then you have these powerful, charismatic figures, and one thing led to the other, and now we see it as a kingmaker. The founders would be really upset at us right now because the one office they did not want to see that was super powerful was the executive, was the presidency. They wanted that control. They wanted the people to have control of the government, not one man. And that's one of the big dangers with republics. And I'm a big believer in republics, as you know. But what occurs is that when people lose track of their civics and they lose track about the way things are supposed to be politically, they're prone to follow one man with answers, or one man who claims he has the answers. We saw it with Barack Obama. The Democrats were people were passing out in the crowds when he spoke. Do you remember that?
I do.
And so you got this one man who says he's going to bring unity, and he didn't bring unity, he brought more division than imaginable. But his speeches were so inspiring to these people, and they followed him because he had the answers. That's the danger.
Yeah.
No one man has the answers. The people have the answers. No one man should be given the power. The people are supposed to have the power. And when people get scared, we talked about this fear factor. That's not just a TV show. It happens to people. People get afraid. And when they're afraid, they'll follow a strong man. They'll follow someone that promises things, even though they may not be able to deliver it. That can create a dangerous form of government. I am not suggesting that happened with President Trump. I think what you saw there was just people sick and tired of being preached to by these leftist lunatics about every conceivable issue out there. They wanted to raise their kids without interference. They wanted to keep more of their pocketbook without interference. They wanted to feel like they were normal again as opposed to being attacked and ridiculed every day simply for being a man or whatever the case may be. Trump wasn't showing strongman tendencies, but he knew what the people wanted to hear. And I think that's important. So we'll see how this unfolds over the next 3 or 4 months. But we need to hit hard and hit fast. We won big.
Yeah, don't go back to sleep.
No, we have a mandate. Hit hard, hit fast, hold the politicians' feet to the fire, make sure they're always accountable to the people. And that's the hard part, because you all are going back to sleep. You're going back. You'll forget about these races. You'll forget about the governors and the House members, and you'll forget about the state senators. You'll go back to sleep. And when you do, you're giving the government to the establishment. You got to stay engaged. That's all we're asking. That's all we're asking. And I think if we do that, we'll have some success. But we'll see. Time will tell here. We'll see who wants to drain the swamp.
Chris, again, do you have, I know we're both pessimists. We both have established that. But do you have any hope this time? I mean, do you think that maybe this time it might be different?
There's always hope. Hope comes in degrees, though, right? Yeah. I mean, the lessons of history have taught me not to put faith in government. I know that's crazy, because right now we're somewhat putting our faith in it because we feel like we can control it. I don't have a lot of faith in government because government will invariably always let us down. I don't have a lot of faith in politicians. I think they've shown their colors time and time again, and invariably it's going to let us down, to disappoint us. So you're asking me if I have hope in politicians? No.
No.
Hope in government? No, none. Hope in the people, maybe, that they wake up? Yeah, a little bit left there. I think they still can, because they showed it Tuesday.
They
right?
did?
They showed it. But you got to find a way to keep them awake and keep them focused, or else the money will overwhelm them. The direct mail pieces will overwhelm them. The TV commercials will overwhelm them. We've got to find ways to keep them engaged, and that's the hard part. And hopefully this show can do something to help. We're trying, doing the best we can.
I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
And this is something that has come out, after this election, because the mainstream media, likes to try to dictate its will on how these elections are going to go. This year you saw some more alternative media routes, like Trump going on podcasts like Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, going outside of the mainstream media. Harris, she went on Shannon Sharp's Club Shay Shay, but that for the most part, she hit mostly just your mainstream outlets. There have been people, Chris, that are saying that this is a clear sign that the scope of the influence of the mainstream media is fading, and now you're starting to see secondary shows like this one having more scope.
No doubt it's fading. I mean, if you look at the polling, nobody trusts media. And so naturally, you're going to try to find people you do trust out there. Now, with that said, there's a lot of lunatics out there. I'm very discerning about what it is that I watch, because it's easy to get down that rabbit trail with these conspiracies and all this stuff. And by the way, maybe we can take some credit here. Did you notice that when we began to really get serious about focusing on the issues, and we said, stop talking about the crazy stuff until after the election, people actually, I know it wasn't us, but it seemed like maybe there was an impact, because it stopped.
Hey, we can take credit for it because nobody can disprove it, right?
That's true. It's the nature of politics.
Now we're politicians,
always take credit for the win, blame somebody else for the losses, right?
That's right.
It's the same in sports. You always take credit for the wins, blame the coach, right?
Yeah.
In sports, never gets credit for the wins.
No.
But boy, every loss falls right on his shoulders.
He's the worst person ever.
Have you noticed that? Every loss.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're getting toward the end here. It's been a good show. I do have hope in the people that they'll stay awake, but it's really up to them.
Yeah.
And it's like a test, right? You know how you take a test, and at the end of the test, you know kind of what your score is? We'll know in about a year.
Yeah.
We'll know in about a year whether or not this, because look, again, I'm going off on a tangent here. If you're the Democrats and if you're the establishment, you know what your game plan is, don't you? Wait him out. That's what they're going to try to do. They're trying to wait him out. They're going to try to obstruct, delay, and wait him out knowing he's got only 4 years.
That's what they do.
So we got 1 year to make a big dent, and then we spend the next 3 years keep the denting. But they're going to try to wait him out. And you know, these career politicians feel like they can play the long game, and they've proven the people won't bring them home. And so let's try to wait him out.
Yeah.
So hopefully let's take action. Let's be swift, and let's get some wins while we still can.
Amen.
All right. Hey, had a good time. Thanks for being here. This is Chris McDaniel's America here on the Midnight Ride Network, your home of the anti-establishment movement in this country. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.
Looks like you've been sleeping well,
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
and you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.